Good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Be Healed Web Show, where I am your host, Camille R. Perry, and I'm so excited and so proud to be able to host this episode and this phenomenal guest that I'm looking so forward to introducing you all to. But before I do that, I want to just give a couple of announcements, words to our sponsors and whatnot. The first thing is, if by chance you would like to share your story here on the Be Healed Web Show, you can do so by simply emailing and reaching out to us at behealedwebshow@gmail.com if you're ready to share your story. Also, want to give a shout out to some of our vendors. We have Cotton Creations, and that is Cotton Creations is a vegan. She's a vegan chef as well as entrepreneur. And Cotton Creations, they have vegan cornbread and pancake waffle mix that are available. If you go to walmart.com, you can procure them there. Well, that's a little word from our sponsors. And again, if you would like to be a part and have your business highlighted or sponsored here on the show, feel free to reach out to us as well at behealedwebshow@gmail.com. Let me tell you about this phenomenal guest that I have. Her name is Dr. Leandra Clark Harvey. She is a well-accomplished wife, mother, but most importantly, outside of wife and mom, her day job, she is CEO, the CEO, and she has been a clinical psychologist for many years, but CEO of the California Council of Community Behavioral Health Agencies, CBHA. So she knows some things about mental illness, mental health, ensuring that each and every one of us represent ourselves in the best way possible. So that's one. But let me just tell you a little bit of background prior to her becoming a CEO. Prior to her work within the California legislation, she completed her Ph.D. in counseling psychology at the University of Wisconsin, Madison. I have a feeling she might be a Packers fan. We'll check that out in a second. But nevertheless, she completed her pre-doctoral fellowship at the University of Southern California. So she has to be a Trojans fan because USC definitely makes some diehard fans. So she worked over at the USC Children's Hospital in Los Angeles, and then her postdoctorate fellowship was at UCLA at Mattel's Children's Hospital. Dr. Clark Harvey has maintained an impressive record of leadership, and she sits on numerous boards, numerous councils. How does she do it all? How does she maintain the work in being an advocate for those in mental health and representing our state, but as well as being a wife, a mother, a daughter, and most importantly, a breast cancer survivor? Let me bring Dr. Leandra Clark Harvey to the stage and, show some love as she comes. Dr. Clark Harvey.
Hi, thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So, okay, so much here. I kind of want you to brag on yourself, if you don't mind, for a moment, your accomplishments. I asked you earlier, I said, you are a very well-accomplished woman, and you stated that you were doing what?
I feel like I'm just living out my purpose, right? I feel like everybody has a purpose in life. And so I feel really blessed to have figured out part of that. At least you never know what's going to happen the rest of your life or where you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to be doing. But at this time in my life, I feel very clear that the position that I have, the education and training and life experiences, that all of it has prepared me for this moment. So just feel really blessed to have this opportunity.
Absolutely. And that stuck with me. I was like, oh, this is a woman who's not only confident in knowing who she is, but clearly she must be confident in the God that she serves, because she's like, oh, no, I'm doing my purpose. So this is awesome. So I want to just kind of jump headfirst into, when I asked you, how would you title this portion of your life? And you stated redefining recovery and resilience. Can you share what that means to you?
Well, recovery is a kind of a phase that I'm in right now as I really recover from breast cancer surgeries and everything that's happened in this last year or two in my life. And I think for me, traditionally, when you think about someone who's recovering from a physical ailment or illness, it's a sad thing. It's not something that's necessarily uplifting. But for me, when I found out that I had early precancerous breast cancer cells that would potentially turn into full-blown breast cancer, I really wanted to make sure that I used this in a way that would allow me to promote, purpose. I wanted to make meaning of it. I thought long and hard about that. I didn't decide right away that I was going to share with the world, with my community about it. But I thought, this has happened to me. There's a reason for this. I don't understand it right now, but let me make the most of it. So when I talk about redefining, a lot of people look at me and have no idea, right? Unless I tell them. And so I made a conscious choice to be very open and public about what was happening in my life. So that's why I talk about, and I say it's important to really redefine your journey. It doesn't have to be sad, though there are definitely ups and downs and sad moments. It can also be something that shows bravery, resilience, and vulnerability too.
Absolutely. Well stated. Well stated. So, you mentioned that you discovered that you had the genes for it. So, can you tell us about that process, that journey that made you even go there?
Sure. So I remember I must have been about 12 years old when my mom got this phone call. And I remember her crying. And the phone call was because her sister, my aunt, had just passed. And she had metastatic breast cancer. At age 42, she passed away. I'm 42 now. She did everything that she could. She had chemo and radiation and mastectomy, but it recurred, and eventually she did die from a brain tumor associated with the initial breast cancer. And so that stuck in my mind, seeing my mother mourn my aunt, losing her at such a young age. And so when the BRCA test came out, and now they're very, available and accessible, I got one and I took it. And I was so happy and relieved. I remember sending a note to my mom and sister saying, "Hey, I don't have the BRCA gene. You probably don't have it either. And isn't this great?" And so I felt a lot of comfort in that. Fast forward years later, I'm now 42, and I got a call one day from my doctor, and he said, "I'm so sorry, but your pathology report shows that there's some early precancerous cells. They're contained, and traditionally, when women have this condition called LCIS, it's fine. Many people live and never develop full-blown cancer. Some do. But when they ran my family history and the women in my family that had had cancer, they gave me about a 70% rate that I would develop cancer sometime in my lifetime. That was pretty high, but I still wasn't sure that I was going to, you know, go through the process and get a surgery until my mom called me about a year later and she said, I was just diagnosed with stage 3C metastatic breast cancer. And that was it for me. I said, that's too close to home. It's
Yeah.
too much coincidence, and I need to live. At the time, I had a 3 and 4 year old. And I wanted to make sure that I did everything in my power, especially while I'm still young, to take care of myself and my family. So that's how I got here. And so I think for me, that's even more reason why it was important for me to be so outspoken, because when people look at me, they're saying, "Oh, look at her, resume, and
Mhm.
look at, her training and everything." And, this is a strong woman. And I needed them to know that behind it all, there are hardships and there are things that are happening. We don't have to cry about it all the time, but it is important to say what's happening. That's how I made meaning of it.
Whew. Okay. Yeah, I'm processing it because, like I mentioned to you earlier, we have family on my mother's side, a young cousin is who went through the mastectomy and is going through that process. What age were you when you received that call?
My at 40, I remember, because
Oh,
it is my 40th birthday, and just a few months later, I was getting a call, and I thought, "Oh my goodness." I thought about my kids, but the second thing I thought about was, "I can't wait to tell everybody that I beat this." It was like this instant thought. I could visualize myself saying, "I'm over this." And then the next year or so, I thought about how to do that, am I going to do what the doctors say and just wait it out? If I do that, how am I going to feel if I then develop breast cancer? I don't know, 5 months, 5 years, 50 years from now. And so eventually, like I said, when I heard about my mom, I had no other choice. For me, it was very clear what I needed to do. But yes, it's important to talk about it. It's important to recognize how families are impacted and to stay aware and stay supportive. Looking at my mom and the journey that she's had, I realized that people have much more difficult um, journeys, right? So I didn't have to do chemo. I didn't have to do radiation. The surgery in itself and the emotional impacts are significant. But watching my mom made me realize that I didn't want to have to do those things as well.
Yeah,
So that's where I get my strength from. And yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely. So you went through the process of double mastectomy,
Mhm.
and what that surgical, so you receive the information about from the pathologist, and then or the pathology report, and then we're also understanding what is happening to your mother, and you make the collective decision, you and your husband, and say, hey, we're going to go ahead and do this to, for health's sake. What was the healing process and time frame for you all, and how did you adjust from being naturally blessed and gifted to the shift in the shape, of everything? How did you redefine yourself in that process?
Well, I'm still redefining myself. I'm still in the reconstruction process. So on June 15th, I had a double mastectomy. And it's a process, right? I feel like it gets stretched and pulled and literally every, few weeks. And my final surgery will be on December 21st to do the final reconstructive steps. But it has been quite a process, not just for, like you said, for the individual, but also for my family, for my husband, for my children, for my mother who's undergoing her own process. So it's been a big thing, but there are so many people in my life who have been supportive. There are so many individuals who have supported me being very public about my diagnosis and about my surgeries. Initially, 20 weeks up until I got my full double mastectomy, I would post funny t-shirts online and things that said like, I woke up, where's my breast? Just funny t-shirts. Every Monday I would come out with one. I had one that said Black Breast Matters. Every week I would come out with something, and folks would send me text messages. It just went viral. And so I was really excited about, bringing humor to something that otherwise could seem, really bleak and sad. And so the other thing that has really kept me going is my kids. I have little kids. They're now 4 and 5, and they little boys, and they have a lot of energy and a lot of needs. And so I didn't have time to cry. So I decided in my extra time, I'm going to laugh, and I'm going to make other people laugh too about this, while also promoting and spreading awareness. It really opened up a lot of conversations that I don't know would have been opened if I didn't share. So
Absolutely. I'm going to share your photos towards the end, so they can see that collage. But, when you said that you had to find the levity, but as well as the seriousness, one of the things that I'm hearing you say is that everything doesn't have to be a cry, doesn't have to be, yes, there's highs and lows, but
Mhm.
is that more of the psychologist in you approach, or is that how Leandra always been?
I think that's how I've always been. I come from a family that loves to laugh, really loves to laugh. Many of our memories are about laughing together, about things
Mm.
and times and being together. And so that's always been a part of my coping mechanism. But I also recognize in my professional training that that can be healthy, as long as you're leaving time to do the real crying if it needs to happen. And there are ups and downs, right? I had my 20 weeks of funny t-shirts, but then I also made a decision after my surgery to share some really vulnerable and hard moments. So, I started posting pictures of me not looking glamorous in my pajamas, not really able to move a lot, and my husband changing my surgical drains and,
Mm.
everything that I needed and helping me in the middle of the night. I had one post where I talked about how I got very ill in the middle of the night and I was hiding in my bathroom because I didn't want my 5-year-old to hear me because he doesn't sleep in his bed anymore. And so he had crawled in bed next to me. And so when I woke up in pain, I looked and I thought, let me get out the bed. I don't want to wake him. I went to the bathroom and I sat there and I was in so much pain because my skin was being stretched and I was just moaning. And I have a very high pain tolerance. So for me, it was really significant to be in that much pain. My husband came in and he was trying to soothe me and help me. And then I heard my 5-year-old knocking at the door. And my husband was telling him, go back to bed. It's okay. And after a while, I said, let him come in. And he sat there with me, and I have a photo of us just sitting there together, and I'm crying, and he's just sitting there looking sad and patting me. And that was hard for me because I did not want to traumatize my children. I didn't want them, I don't want them to look back at this part of their life and say, Mommy was sick all the time. But it was real. That's what was happening in that moment. And I hope what they get from that is that, you can have those moments of weakness and, where it's really hard, but you can be strong too. So that's a little bit about that journey and how my family has weathered it with me.
Wow. Oh, so heavy because I'm having been seeing the photo, but my mind, I thank God for a photographic mindset, or I can paint a picture with the words that you're sharing with me. And I'm like, oh my God, how heavy that must be. Whether that picture is, forever just welded in your heart, yes, but also if someone captured that, and posted it like, this is, you're not just sick alone. The family is impacted, and it's not just immediate family. It could
Right.
be, the work family, the church family. It's so we're all in this thing together. Okay. Um, well, how I'm gonna kind of go off script for a second, but let's talk about the kids. How are they doing now when they see mom going to work? The schedule's back. How are they faring with mom now?
I don't know that I ever stopped working. So my team will tell you when I, I know, superwoman, right?
Yeah.
Gonna work on that. But my team will tell you that when I rolled out of my surgery after my double mastectomy, I had my laptop nearby and I was, thumbs up because I was feeling okay. And I was holding up a t-shirt that said double mastectomy. I've been there, done there, got the t-shirt. So again, I was using humor to cope. I did take some time off work, but then I got back into the groove about 3 or so weeks later. Thank goodness for working remotely. I was able to do a lot of that and continue to do that as needed. So that's been good, and that's helped me really engage with my team. Using humor and the t-shirts has also been a way to break the ice and to talk to people and to spread awareness. So my team, really shares that was helpful for them to have a conversation with me about what was happening. So I found a lot of support from my team at work. My board of directors was incredibly supportive. And with my family, my kids are doing well. As I shared, that was my chief concern. When I first got that phone call, I thought, oh my God, I want to be here for my kids, my little boys. And I'm still here. And I think for them, hopefully them seeing me some days high performing, doing everything I can to work and really live out my purpose is going to be very helpful for them. And some moments it's hard, right? And so I hope the lessons that they're getting from that and gleaning from that is that this is life. There are ups and downs, but it doesn't always have to be down, and it's not always going to be up. My husband has been incredibly supportive. I knew that I loved him and that he was wonderful from the moment I met him. But, in sickness and in health, that's really definitely been played out during this time. And, things that I thought were gross and I didn't want to touch, he's like, I got it. I'll do it. And so it's just wonderful to have someone there to lie beside me when I was in pain, to help me, to pray for me and with me. My family's been incredible. My parents, my siblings and everyone. So I'm just really, really grateful for everything. And people will rise to the occasion in ways that you don't always expect them to. And I'm grateful for that as well. For instance, earlier this week, my back went out completely. I thought I was paralyzed when I woke up. And it's because, when you have this reconstructive process, you can't sleep like normal. So I was very uncomfortable, and I must have moved in a way that was not very good for my spine, and I couldn't move. I had my aunts in
Mhm.
St. Louis that immediately connected me with specialists that they knew who did virtual visits with me and really helped me to recover. And in those moments, it just shows the love that people have and the support. When I couldn't, cook or get around the house and my husband was exhausted, we had neighbors and folks that came over and, took my kids to the park for a little bit. So those types of things have been important. So I would say to your question, the family's doing well, but only because we have community, and support here. Because if it wasn't for them, we would really be struggling. And so I'm just grateful for all of it.
Absolutely, absolutely, and I appreciate that even while you're currently in. I know you mentioned that you're in pain today, so I won't hold you long. I promise. You mentioned that you're a woman of faith as well. So, was there a scripture, a quote, maybe a song that carried you through this process or yet carrying you through this process?
Oh my goodness. All of it. I would say my foundation of faith is huge. You know, my dad's a pastor. I grew up in church. I grew up knowing what it means to have faith and believe in something bigger than yourself. And I think in these moments that is tested. I think in these moments that comes back to you. And I'm looking down because, you know, a friend sent me a scripture this week that was very helpful to me in a time when I was just really overwhelmed. And
Yeah.
so I'll share that because I think it's just so important and it was so on point for me. Of course, I'm not finding it quickly, but it's a scripture in Isaiah, and it really talks about being carried and taken care of, you know,
When I
walking
pass
through
through
the
the water,
fire.
yeah.
Yes,
When you
and
go
not
through
being alone, right?
yeah.
And it's like I knew that, right? Because I've probably learned that Bible verse and recited it 5 million times. But
Mhm.
in that moment, it's exactly what I needed. I didn't need somebody to cry for me. I didn't need someone to feel sorry. I needed someone to encourage me with what I already knew in my spirit and what I already had been, you know, trained up and learned in childhood. And so that was really, really important that I could have that.
Absolutely. I'm gonna pull it up myself. Because it's one of my favorites too. But Isaiah 40, I think it's 43. I
Yes.
believe, yes, and I think it's the first few verses. Yes, but now this is what the Lord says: He who created you, Jacob, He who formed you, Israel. Do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have summoned you by name. You are mine. And when you pass through the waters, I will be with you.
Yes.
And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. And when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned.
The
The
flame
flames will
will
not
not
set you
touch
ablaze.
you. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was
Awesome.
really powerful. So being a person of faith and having that connection to draw upon is incredible. And, you know, just the other night when I was really in a lot of pain, I got up to try to cook dinner and I was standing there in the kitchen and my kids walked up to me with open arms and I thought, oh, they're going to give mommy a hug. And they hugged me and then they prayed for me. And that melted my heart. I was like, oh my goodness, you know, and it was simple little child's prayers like, you know, God, please help mommy's back feel better. And, you know, this and that. But the fact that they did that was just really important. And my husband was like, wow, you know, I thought they were just giving you a hug and, you know, asking for a treat. But they actually were thinking about your condition and praying for you. And it just warmed my heart that they knew where to turn
Yeah.
when things looked hard.
Yes. That scripture is, we grew up hearing it, the effectual fervent prayer of the righteous avails much, right? And Christ tells us to have that childlike faith, to just believe in yes, they might be children, but I believe that prayer went a mighty long way.
It did.
And I'm grateful to God. That touches my heart. Thank you.
Mhm.
Whew. Um, okay, let's get back to these questions. So, you know, um, man, such a blessing. And, I'm looking at just how you mentioned, all that's going on in your home. How is your mom handling with, how is she doing? How has she been since her prognosis? And it sounds like you all are kind of journeying together through this.
Yeah, you never want to bond over breast cancer, right? I mean, it's like it's not the thing I thought I'd bond with my mom over, but she's doing pretty well. She's had quite the journey, but she rang that bell when she finished radiation, and she rang the bell a few weeks ago when she finished her chemo, and she's now joined me in this reconstructive phase. And so it's quite a journey, and it's very hard on her and her body, but she's faithful. And I look at my mom as my source of strength and my really example. And so I think that in this time in my life, in this trial, I recognize very clearly where I'm drawing a lot of that from: humor, coping, strength. And I've got to say too, my mom, when she first found out, she didn't really want to share with a lot of people.
Mm.
And that was very different from my approach. And I respected that. But that was hard for me because it was such a big part of my story. And I couldn't tell that part of my story until my mom, finally decided, okay, I see how they're, kind of reacting to my daughter. And it's not probably not so bad to, share, and there might be meaning in that. And she went through her own process and decided that she was going to be public too. So when she rang her bell, she posted on Facebook, and she wore her own t-shirt. It said, "God is bigger than cancer." And she rang her bell, and that's how people found out. And of course, she was much further in her journey, but since then she's been very open. She's posted about some tough moments, but she's always positive. And, growing up, she's always been positive as well, always looking for the silver lining and having faith. So she's doing all right. She's in her process. There are really hard moments, and it's hard for me because we're not together. She's in Illinois. I'm in California.
Where about?
But
My family's in Illinois.
she's in a suburb of Chicago. So
Okay.
yeah, so she's healing, right? She's on her journey. But like I said, it's something I never would have predicted that we would be doing this together. And it's like, how's you doing? How are you doing? How's your scar? Let me tell you about mine. But we will get through this. And so I'm really faithful and making the most of this, and making purpose out of it as much as we can.
Yes, absolutely. We're coming down to our last portions. What would you admonish young women, let's say late teen? Well, actually, I'm wondering, do we even say teens anymore? Or we just say any age because of all the hormonal changes that are happening? Like, at what age do we need to start looking into this? And what admonishment would you have for the younger women coming behind you?
Yeah, that's a big question, right? Because so much we don't know a lot. And what I've realized through this process is that there's been a lot of research in breast cancer, and I think that's evident in medications and changes. But some of the processes that I'm undergoing, I'm just amazed that these are some of the same processes that my aunt, who was 42, 30 years ago, had to do herself. I'm like, wow, we haven't found a better way to reconstruct a woman's body. So that's amazing to me. And I think there's a lot of medical advances that need to happen. In terms of, words of wisdom for all women, I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, get checked, right? Get your mammograms. If you feel something odd, check it out. Don't wait until it's too late. The other thing I say is that I know that for some women, they're waiting because, well, I want to hit that mark when my Medicare, comes into play so I can afford the surgeries. Take care of yourself, because you don't want to be at a stage where you're chasing the cancer, and you're risking your life and your well-being even more. Do whatever you have to do to get the help that you can. And I don't say that from a place of privilege and judgment. I say that because your life is important, and you have to do whatever you can to take care of it, and to take care of your family as well. In this journey, one thing I've recognized is that there's a generational difference in the way that at least Black women, in my observation, deal with this disease. I receive so many messages and inboxed messages from women who said, "Oh my goodness, putting yourself out there, these t-shirts are funny. I could never do that. I had cancer a year ago or 2 years ago, and I never said anything." And I was amazed. Women that I knew, and I'm like, how did they hide this? Even my mother took her time and, really thought about if she wanted to be public. And so it's something I'm still figuring out. But for that baby boom kind of era and generation of women, and their mothers as well, I've noticed, this is all anecdotal, but for me, I've noticed that there's a hesitancy around being public, around sharing this. And, at first I was really kind of struck by it, but I think it's also because when you think about the context and the time that many of these women grew up, it was not okay. They were shattering the glass ceiling. It hadn't been broken yet, and there's still work to do. But those pioneers in the women's movement, and so on, really, it wasn't okay to talk about these types of diseases and issues. There's a lot of shame and stigma. And so part of me kind of making light of my situation by the t-shirts and sharing so publicly is because I know there's so many that aren't, and probably there's a lot of people that would benefit from it. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I listen. I'm a fan. I'm going to be following you on Facebook after this. Just, openly putting that out there. But do you have maybe a YouTube channel or anything where people can follow, or maybe your Instagram where people can see?
No, I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I haven't. Maybe something to look forward to doing in my spare time. But no, I'm just an individual on this journey and coping the best way that I can. Little did I know it would have such an impact on people, but I'm happy to share my story. I'm grateful for this venue to be able to talk about it, and to promote what it means to be resilient, and vulnerable. That's a big piece of it too.
Yes. I every time I'm doing any of these episodes, I always think about that scripture. We overcome by the words of our testimony and by the blood of the Lamb.
Yeah.
Let the redeemed, Psalms 102, let the redeemed of the Lord say so, whom he has redeemed from the hand of the enemy. We owe it, to tell of his goodness. We owe it to somebody else that might not know, who hasn't tried God for themselves, or might not know that there is a community where they can be received, whether they have breast or not. You can still be beautiful, and you're still all of that. Nothing changes. You're just taking charge of your health. And I think that the stigma that we have put so much emphasis on our bodies, I think that has to be kind of shattered as well. And I appreciate, I'm going to post it in our closeout, your photos, because it's it's heartwarming and heartfelt to see someone who had to go through, and to say that they can still say with a smile. And I think that oh my God, I'm applauding you for all that you do, because so many times oh no, not these, right? But it's these are your life, what matters most.
Sure.
And so, but I'm praying for you and your family.
Thank you.
For sure. Your beautiful family, your wonderful boys, and your husband. Praying for each and one of them, and your mom. I'll be texting you to give your mom's name so we can add her on her prayer list as well. But
Great.
where can people follow you? Like, are you willing to take calls? I mean, because somebody might be watching this and want you to be their, I don't want to call you their sponsor, but the mentor through this
Sure.
journey.
Sure.
Their healing
Well,
journey.
my organization is the California Council of Community Behavioral Health Agencies, and we represent mental health and substance use disorder agencies, clinics across the state. So, a big part of this is not just the physical toll, but the mental health toll as well, and the importance of really connecting the physical and the mental health. So, the website is up for my organization. Feel free to email me at lclarkharvey@cccbha.org. Happy to take calls or emails from anyone that's interested in discussing further. But really, I think it's important to be in this space where I can bring together my platform around a physical health challenge that has a real mental behavioral health aspect to it. And coping is huge. You've mentioned the church, you've mentioned community groups and others. A community group that's been very helpful to me is Carrie's Touch. It's run by a Black woman. They do some amazing work. And not only was that helpful to me, and I'm a psychologist, but it was helpful for me to have someone to talk to. And I was able to connect them to my mom too, who's in a different state, and they were able to help her. So check them out for sure, and feel free to reach out with any questions. I'm happy to share.
I'm putting this in its .org, L. Clark Harvey at cccbha.org, correct?
3 C's, cccbha.org.
Okay, I think I have it. Let me know if this looks right. Clark Harvey. Okay, it should be on the screen there. Yes, if you all want to follow and get in contact with Dr. Clark Harvey, please do so. She has definitely been added to my list of preferred folks to contact. I'm about to say, do you take patients? Are you open to taking new patients, new clients? I have a list of people who would love. Matter of fact, just come to a family gathering. Just come on.
I am not practicing. I'm actually not licensed. I have my doctorate in psychology, but I'm working to advocate for the needs of behavioral health agencies that provide services. So I definitely have a lot of agencies that I can refer people to, and lots of friends I know who are psychologists, etc. that can provide excellent services. But no, I'm not taking any clients. I got 2 little kids, a husband, and I got to get over this. So,
Yes, absolutely. Your plate is full. Absolutely. But thank you so much for taking time out of your evening.
of course, yeah.
Thank you for setting down your cape for just a moment and allowing us to see you in all of your experience, your trials and your triumphs. Thank you. Thank you for your resiliency. Thank you for showing us how to redefine what recovery and resilience looks like. Helping us to know that we are strong, that we are victorious. And what I love what you said in the beginning, when you got the information, you already saw yourself beating this. When you already saw victory, you already saw the end. And
Mhm.
thanks be unto God that He gave you that. And I'm just standing with you in faith, my dear sister, that
Thank
God
you.
is going to see you through, that the enemy you see today will be the last of this, and you're going to just continue to walk through. And I'm just praying that over your family because that's my prayer. So we're trusting and believing God. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all have enjoyed this moment with Dr. Leandra Clark Harvey, and all the way from Northern California. Thank you, thank you, thank you. But for those of you who have not maybe made your appointment yet, ladies, this is October. This is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. This is the time. Take a moment and take care of yourself. Whether you're young or old, you need to take care of yourself. You matter. So we've talked to some amazing guests, and we'll continue out and close out next week, if the Lord allows us, with another brave story of women who have triumphed and conquered and are yet conquering, because we know that, as Leandra's mom stated on her shirt, God is greater and bigger than cancer. So we're trusting God for that. So Dr. Harvey, if you would be so kind to hang out with me for a second, I'm gonna close out with the guests and wrap up. But please share this, subscribe on the YouTube channel if you haven't already. You can subscribe by hitting that, if you're watching on YouTube, hitting that red button. If you're watching on Facebook, make sure you share and share alike. Replay this with your friends and family. And then, of course, most importantly, tune in to us next week, same Be Heal time, same Be Heal channel, 7 p.m. May the Lord bless you and keep you is our prayer. And again, we're grateful for the testimonies of the victorious women that God has blessed to be going through this journey and knowing that God is carrying them through victory. And I'm excited about that. Until next time, it's been my pleasure to host Dr. Leandra Clark Harvey. You all have a blessed evening.
Thank you so much.